All right, how goes the family? Welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Hopefully, y'all having a great and exceptional evening. Okay, so main reason why I'm going live today is because I saw a post on Facebook and I was like, you know what? I think about stuff like this all the time, so let me talk about it. All right, so straight up and down, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I respect everybody. It is what it is. I'm not here to argue. I'm just here to put out my perspective. Put your perspective in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't. Go to my YouTube channel, Larry's Anything Goes LLC. Like, share, and subscribe, or just subscribe and call it a day. Anyways, so there was a post. This is a post that's been going around for a minute. And I know I have not spoken on it. The post is the problem is in 2024. We're basically almost in 2025. The problem is in 2024. We're looking for 90s love in 2024. But here's the thing, and there's nothing wrong with wanting the 90s love, but you have to put things into perspective. The world is not the same what it used to be in the 1990s. People's worlds, unless somebody was in like the Peace Corps, they had a job that had them on the road, like i.e. a truck driver, the military, or a corporate salesperson or whatnot back in the 1990s. People's worlds was much more smaller as far as the United States go, was much more smaller compared to it is in 2024. Let's just keep it real. Okay, what I mean is you did not have social media. It was not normal for people to date people that lived in other states and countries. Now, you did have the order the bride thing back in the day because, you know, everything was done via telephone. You had telephone books, telephone ads, things of that nature. But that was usually for people that was in the well-to-do club. That's number one. And number two, the world is different. The world is much more international. The world is much more connected. We are in the height of the information age. Opportunities are somewhat bigger than they used to be compared to the 1990s. People living in, Americans going abroad and living in other countries is much more bigger today than it was in the 1990s. Men and women having more options is much more different today in 2024 compared to the 1990s. Great example. I always use this example. The rapper The Game is from Los Angeles, California. He never went outside of his neighborhood until he was like 21 years old. He never went to the beach until he was 21 years old. Okay? Me and the Game are in the same age range. I'm 41, about to be 42. I believe he's 44, 45. Okay, I know he's in his 40s. This man lived in a city by the ocean and never saw the ocean until he was in his 20s. I believe the earliest might have been 19 years old. Okay? People's worlds was much more smaller in the 1990s for most regular working people compared to what it is now. Because even now, if somebody can't go somewhere, they can get way more information to see way more content and videos of a country, a city, a state than they ever have in human history. So like I said, people have options, and with options comes, hey, I don't have to follow the same lifestyle that my parents or grandparents did because I have options. That's the main thing of this whole rant and whatnot. In 2024, especially for those who have their stuff together, they have more options compared to the people in the 1990s. So they're not going to approach things like people did in the 1990s. And let's just keep it real. As you know, my brother's generation would say, let's keep it a buck. Folks in the 1990s looked at marriage way differently compared to folks in 2024. It wasn't as much of an opportunistic thing compared to 2024. In the 1990s, people was in it for the long haul from American perspective, American culture. People was in it for the long haul. People wasn't into just having babies for the sake of having babies back then. In a sense, and I'm not knocking anybody who's had babies and didn't get married to the person they had babies with or was married and got divorced. I'm not knocking you whatsoever. I'm not. I'm just saying that it was frowned upon more in the 1990s in America compared to 2024. It's normal. I don't frown upon it because it doesn't affect me. In my mind, the only thing I frown upon in this life is, hey, if you're hurting somebody physically, if you raping somebody, you molesting somebody, I frown upon that in a big, big way. But have a relationship and babies with whoever you want to. That's your business, not mine. But the point of the matter is, certain things were frowned upon back then. Heck, even in the 1990s, interracial relationships were still, in a sense, frowned upon back then. From both cultures. From all cultures, not both, all. So, like I said, the world was different. Neighborhoods, even people's neighborhoods, weren't as integrated in the 1990s compared to now. You know, a lot of neighborhoods weren't as multicultural. You know, Pete, like I said, I use that example of the game never going to the beach. LA's got beaches all over. LA's on the freaking Pacific Coast in California. California's a Pacific Coast state on the coastline. And the fact that people, and more people, wasn't just him, I just used him as an example because he's a celebrity, grew up in the city of Los Angeles and never went to the freaking coast. New Yorkers, I got family from New York and Connecticut and New Jersey. A lot of New Yorkers never, they might have left their borough, but like if you grew up in Queens, going to Brooklyn meant something. Going to the Bronx or Manhattan or Harlem meant something. But a lot of times you had people that never even left the city of New York growing up in New York back in the 1990s. Like I said, people's worlds were much more smaller. So you try to make the comparison of 1990s to 2024, people's worlds are much more bigger than they ever have been in history. And I'm talking regular working people, not people that are working on a ship, not people that are in a truck, not people that are in the military or have a corporate sales position that allows people to travel. Most people back in the 1990s, the ones who had regular basic jobs, they didn't have social media, so their world, that was all the world they knew was what they read in the papers, what they saw on the media, read in books. But there wasn't content like that where people could get a broader perspective of the world compared to today. You had people that could do that, they called documentaries, but mostly, for the most part, people's worlds were much more smaller mentally. People did not leave. I mean, heck, great example. The only places I saw growing up as a kid was my mother took me, was usually family places. 99% of the time when we left Woodbridge, Virginia, it's because we were going to see family. So we was going to Richmond, Virginia, which is only an hour and a half away south of Woodbridge. Connecticut, New York, New Jersey area, which is a 4 or 5 hour, depending on traffic, 6-hour drive. North Carolina, 3-4 hour drive. That was my world. Outside of Woodbridge, Virginia, inside Woodbridge, Virginia, the DMV area, my world was those areas that I just mentioned. And the only time that I took a trip outside of those places that I mentioned was to Dallas, Texas, where my family members moved to, and Orlando, Florida, because my grandmother's church had a bus from Richmond, Virginia. We took all the way down to Orlando, Florida. Hell on earth. Don't recommend it. But hey, that was, outside of that, never took any trips that was outside of the norm because it was always family related. So my world was still small compared to now. I'd have been to a bunch of places that didn't involve my family being there. I wanted to explore different cultures, go to see different parts of the United States. I expanded my own world. So my mindset is different because I had tenacity to say I'm going to see something different and do something new. I'm going to be different. I'm going to think outside of the box. And hey, there's people that have seen 30 to 50 different countries compared to what I've done. Their world is much bigger and much broader. So they think differently and have a different perspective. And a lot of people will be like, well, Larry, what does this have to do, or most people that know me, they call me Elger, what does this have to do with love, people being in love in the 1990s and compared to 2024? Well, it has a big difference, because I'm sure when somebody settles down, they settle down and they want to be with the right person or whatnot, but the men and women who have their stuff together, not just in the looks department, but has their stuff together financially, heads right, things of that nature, they have a right to be much more pickier in 2024 than they did in the 1990s. Okay? Because they got people trying to talk to them from all over the country, and in certain instances, from all over the world. The perspective is broadened. The options are more, so therefore you think and do things differently strategically. Unless you're a part of a culture that still practices arranged marriages, which is nothing wrong with that. But unless you're part of that culture, you have to think outside that. You have to think and live outside the box. And unfortunately, a lot of people still think that things should be done in the 1990s perspective. And let's just keep it real. If you're going to date somebody and marry somebody, it needs to be like somebody's going, if you are worthy, and I'm talking not just in the looks department, if you are worthy, a freaking job interview needs to be done. Those kind of questions need to be, the right hard questions need to be asked to see if you're actually compatible outside of attraction. That's all I got to say. That's my rant. Do the great three things. Like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. Make money moves, or you're going to live, bro, like a fool. Take care.